deep into Bank Holiday Monday reviews and a review of the latest album by Chief Keef, Almighty So 2, a follow-up to a mixtape he released around 2012, I think. So Chief Keef's story is one of the most enthralling in rap for people that aren't interested into the likes of Travis Scott. He's almost the antithesis of the modern, very weak era of rappers. We saw Justin Bieber come out and complain about Eminem, and I'm not a particular fan of Eminem, that he didn't understand modern rap. Modern rap in general has been pretty shit. It's been a rubbish era for rap music after sort of 2015, 2016. A lot of the major artists that have come through have been terrible. Chief Keef has been this outsider artist. Keith Colesart from Chicago arrived on the scene, and I started playing him on my radio show as soon as I Don't Like came out, which is about I don't know if it's 2010, 11 or 12, I can't even remember, and was the most dangerous person in America for a while. He was like under house arrest or something for firing a gun at the police when he was 16, and this was from the Chirac streets of relentless murders happening in certain neighborhoods in Chicago. And then he got involved in, I think he was filming a video for Pitchfork magazine and had a fake gun in it, and ended up being dropped by his record label. So he was touted as the next big thing, but too much of a hot potato for the record label, I think Interscope, to hang on to, so they ditched him. And then the very strangest thing happened, which is he became this incredible underground artist, relentlessly releasing projects. Like Lil B, I guess. There's like underground artists releasing project after project. I think one year I actually got 6 album-length projects from Chief Keef. Most of them mixtapes, but all of them, or at least a lot of them, would be thematically around one particular new direction. Either the production or the sonics or something he'd just do whatever the hell he wanted. He's a true outsider artist and somebody that radiates I don't give a fuck about anything. He's never pursued any sort of fame. He's just done his own thing. And I feel like we're entering a golden era of Chief Keef's music because he's had an incalculable impact in the background on music. He is synonymous with being, I guess, the godfather of Chicago drill. Drill music itself has mutated and travelled around the world to the extent where UK drill is arguably the most prominent rap form, and for people in other countries, and has even circled back to New York itself with Pop Smoke and the likes of that. But also for the SoundCloud era and cloud rap era and mumble rap era as well, to a degree. He's kind of like denoted as every rapper under the age of 27's favourite rapper. He's never sold out. He's never done anything that anyone expected him to. He's had his critics, and he just doesn't care. But the one thing that he hasn't really done, due to his incredibly high count of album-length projects, is release a masterpiece album per se. But in the modern era, the releases over the last few years have been the closest run, I think, of 3 albums. There was the Glowtoven album, and there was the studio album. He's only done about 5 studio albums because he's done so many mixtapes. For Nem, which came out in 2021, which revealed an entirely new focused version of Keith. And now we've got Almighty So, which is just incredible. And even though I might give the Schoolboy Q album a slightly higher score, I think at the end of the year I will have listened to this twice as much. It's a fantastic album, and it's also produced by him with help from others, but at the same time, comparing his output here, it's funnier, it's wilder, it's more inventive than anything these corporate rap whores are doing at the moment. The almighty intro dramatic, barnstorming, wild and violent. A lot of this album is violent on its impact in the aggressive nature of the vocals and swearing. Uses the Carmina Burana Omen music, and a lot of lyrics like born in 95, ready since 91 are surreal and funny and engaging throughout. I'm not going to spend time on the tracks because there's so many, but Nem featuring Ball Out and G Hebro continues that cinematic sound and thundering drums. There's a lot of really good sub bass and drill percussive passages on this album where he really like lays it down, which is great. Treat Myself, bit more introspective self-reflection on him, which he'll do a lot better later in the album. And you know, he's got some really trademark surrealism when it comes to lines that are funny. Started wearing yellow diamonds, looks like I peed myself. And it's a bit closer to like just pure sort of trap music that birthed drill in the first place. There's a skit, the Jesus skit featuring Kojo Bediako, which is very funny at first. He does overdo it, this comedian, a bit. You could have cut that one in half, but the whole thing is overlaced with this really bombastic drum machine just going off from Chief Keef. And it flows into one of the most ambitious tracks, which is Jesus, which is has this really sort of frenetic sub bass and drill drums going on over a long form track. Two Trim, I thought, is, you know, it's got one of the best choruses. This is an album that moves into its strongest part in the middle of the album. I feel like that it really does pick up. It's got one of the best hooks on that. The yelling flow at times is a little bit repetitive. He's been accused of being like quite sleepy and mumble rappy towards the start of his career, but I think that he's gotten, you know, much more angry and alert in the last few years, but it can overdo that sort of yelling flow a bit. And then we reach like a real, like it really does plateau through the middle run of tracks. Track 7, Runner, has got some great drum programming on it as well, and sub bass, and almost a few times on this album Kanye-esque soul samples as well, which is quite good. And then we get to a couple of very interesting, perhaps political choices on the album, which is using a couple of female rappers back to back, aligning himself with them when they have probably received a fair amount of vitriol. I thought it was a really interesting stance to take in like positioning himself. So we get Banded Up, one of the best tracks. The verse from Tierra Whack on this, which is a, you know, Eminem hyperspeed verse, is incredible and the best on the whole album from her. And the fact that she's doing that for him on this album is interesting, I think. And then he follows it up with Sexy Red, another one, hugely prominent female rapper that's come under a lot of abuse for being substance free and so on. But her chemistry with Chief Keef is superb. The lyrics are constantly funny, and it's just a lot of fun. It's just like a really fun track. Him saying, you know, I don't want to ever get married, what is a groom? Her saying, I don't want to go out with a guy with ugly shoes. It's like continually funny. And Chief Keef saying, you know, your mother should have pushed your broke ass back in the womb. It's very, very funny and very catchy. I thought it was superb. It's a really strong run. It's probably the strongest run I think he's had on an album through this midsection. 1, 2, 3 again, almost Kanye-esque sampling going on. It's a little bit of a more anonymous track. Sorry, so not 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 is a great track. Actually, I said the Kanye thing. I could almost imagine it being on the Pusha T album Daytona. Actually, the vibe of it, but it does come down a little bit with Drifting Away, perhaps an aptly named song. It's a little bit more ending that run. And then we get some real classy ones. Never Fly Here featuring Quavo, probably the biggest guest star on the album. Really high glossy track, perhaps because that's more likely to get an individual chart position given its co-host. And probably the closest the album comes to entering the same universe as that future Metro Booming sort of era of that's dominating the talk and rap at the moment. Interestingly, he does kind of engage himself in the Kendrick Drake beef, all the way back on that skit, that Jesus skit, where he calls out Drake for having a light skin. Is interesting. Prince Charming is okay. It's not a standout track. And then we get to Believe, the most interesting track he's made in years, and a new leaf, I feel, as it talks about him framing the age of his daughter, which he can't quite get over, with the fact that he never had a childhood. Unusually introspective and self-referencing from him. It could have easily been a standout album closer. I do understand why he didn't, as it would have ended the album on a much more sort of down note. But the strongest, probably, narrative lyric on the whole album, and one of the most interesting lyrics he's ever put to paper. Very, very interesting. He then goes off onto a Tony Montana skit, which is just odd, and a very upbeat, almost pop end with I'm Trying to Cozart Sleep, which is... I feel like that, he put the last couple of tracks on there to try and sort of liven things up after that track Believe, which was a downer and a very strong track with a couple of more trifling upbeat pop interludes. Again, a fantastic album, which is following up from 4Nem, a rapper that's never got his dues, but has created this underground cult status, and might end up being my rap album of the year. It's been a dreadful era for rap over the last 5 years. There's just not been the classics that there were, say, 2010 to 2015. A lot of big, long-form rap albums. I said that in the Schoolboy Q review, that, that was so refreshing to hear this very artistic, long-form album that wasn't just padding out so it gets streaming chart positions. Like every Drake album has 23 tracks, so it gets a higher position on the album charts and rubbish like that. It was a real long-form labour of love. And no one knows where Chief Keef is going next, but it feels like, off the back of 3 major projects over recent years, that he's plateauing into something that's connected with the mainstream a bit more. And yeah, someone that has got a lot more fuel in the tank. So I'm going to give Chief Keef, and what is this one? Almighty So 2, an 8.5 out of 10. I could probably cull the odd track here, and it would have been stronger, and I would have probably maybe paced it a bit different, I think. Moved some of the tracks around, but overall, one of his, if not his strongest studio album. 8.5 out of 10 for Chief Keef and Almighty So.